Alright, so we want to make some arrows out of river cane. Now the first thing we need to do is of course find the river cane. And river cane likes to hang out in kind of wet areas. So if there's like a floodplain or kind of a swampy area, go check it out. Look for some river cane. Also slopes that go down to a river, you can also find it there. But here in Central Florida, it's very uncommon. In fact, this is the only place that I know of that it exists. However, up in central Georgia, Tennessee, you'll find different types of canes up there. So the southeast kind of coastal plain there is where you want to look. Once we find it, we need to find out which ones do we cut. Now there's two criteria. We want a second year growth, and we also want it to be the right diameter. So if we look at this guy right here, he's got these sheaths on him, but they fall off pretty easy, and they're all crispy and they fall off. This guy right here, however, has sheaths completely covering it, and you can only see a little bit of green peeking through right there. Now this guy right here, this is going to be second year growth, and they have a 2-year life cycle. Basically they grow straight up, and also this guy doesn't have any branches on him yet, so they're going to grow straight up, and they're going to be soft and flimsy during that time, and then they're going to kind of get a little bit more robust and stronger, like this piece right here. So this would be a good piece to harvest right here. So we need to check the diameter. Ideally we want them about 10 millimeters across. Now one way a lot of people measure that is they'll take a wrench like this one, and they'll just put it around it, and they'll slide it down until it stops. So right about here, this is a good diameter. So generally I like to cut it down a little bit below that. Also, one thing that makes things a little easier is you want fewer nodes on your arrow. So that means you're going to want these nodes, which are basically the area between the sections, you want these to be further apart. So this guy's got a fairly decent length between nodes, and but it's not critical to have only like 2 or 3 nodes. You can have 5 nodes on an arrow, and you can still shoot and kill something with it. Alright, so this looks like a good piece of cane, and the way we cut it, first we need to know a little bit about the plant. We'll notice these are long and skinny plants, so they're going to have strong fibers all along the outside here. That way when it gets bent over by the wind or whatever, it's not gonna snap. And so what we do here is, of course, we can just take our knife and just take it and bend it over and slice it. Now in the spirit of being primitive, I'm going to actually just use a flint flake because it actually makes a little bit of a nicer cut. So I'm going to take a couple flakes here. This one looks good. And I'm just going to find, this one's pretty narrow, so I'm going to cut as far down as possible. Alright, so we've cut it all the way around the edge, and we've just scored around the edge. So we're gonna just bend it in every direction, just a little bit, just enough, just until we hear a crack. And then it comes off really clean, just like this. And that's exactly what we want. Now I can just tear that off, tear these branches off. Now I like to use a flake that has like a little indentation here, where it's still sharp on the inside. That way I have a lot more surface, flake surface touching this as I go around, and that way it just makes it a lot easier of a cut, and I can just continue on around. So just snap that off. Now of course my draw length is not this long, but it's probably more like this, and so about that long is how long I want my arrows. Now for you personally, it's going to be a little bit different, but basically you just want to draw out your draw length and make your arrow about that long. You can always take off cane if you need to later. Now this shaft has kind of a thick end, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a little bit off of this side, and then I'm going to take some off of this side. So about right here. Yeah, that'd be good. Also, I like to cut just behind nodes. That way my arrow nock is going to be right by the node, and that'll just make things a little bit more solid when it comes to our arrow nock. Sweet. So pull that back. I'm gonna cut off about right there. Put them up somewhere dry, they're not gonna get wet, and just let them season. Once it's brown, it's pretty much seasoned and you can use it as an arrow. Okay, so we're gonna fast forward like a month or two to when our cane is seasoned, and I'm gonna show you guys how to straighten it and how to prepare it and get it ready to put fletchings on and put an arrowhead on it. Now after our cane is turned from this into this here, we're gonna wanna put some notches in it and we're gonna wanna straighten it. And if yours is not straight, then it's no good. All right, so this is a piece of river cane that we're gonna straighten. And I don't know if you guys can see it, but if you look down the shaft and you spin it, you'll see any kind of curve in it. And right here, by this node, there's a curve off to the left here. So we're gonna straighten it. Now, what I've done is I've gotten two logs and I've put them together parallel. And that way there's gonna be heat coming out between them. And so any heat under there is gonna be forced in between them. And so we're gonna have that little area that's a lot more focused than an open fire to heat our shaft on. So I'm just gonna let it kind of roast over the fire for a little bit, and I want it to be hot all the way around. So I'm just gonna slowly spin it just like a rotisserie. That looks about good. I like that. So you just heat that up, do that slight correction there, and then let it cool and it'll stay just like that. And so that's how you get extremely straight arrows. Now after I got my arrow nice and straight, what I want to do is I want to cut a nock into it. So one way I can do it is I can just like start sawing into it, but I don't really like doing it that way. So I'm going to grab my flint flake and I'm going to start start etching along the edge here. And the idea here is to just thin it down until it hits the hollow part of your arrow, and then there'll be just these two sides left. Now this takes a long time and it's really annoying, so I'm going to show you the way that I actually do it. That isn't really primitive, but it's so much faster. So we're going to go do that. Alright, so the way I actually make my nocks is I find a concrete slab, and what I do here is I want my notch to be up and down like this. So I'm going to take it and I'm just going to basically just rub it down. So and that's pretty effective. You see that's been wore off pretty quick. And so we're going to do that on both sides, and that's going to make things so much faster and easier. That's looking good. So I want to do it until the outside is getting really thin here, and I can just pop it in and break it. And so I'm going to take my flint stone here and I'm just going to kind of just stick it down in there and just bust it down, because that side is really thin. And so now I've got myself a nice little self nock here. So now my shaft is ready to go. I can put fletching on it and I can go ahead and start on the arrowhead. So stick around, and until next time, find a new way to appreciate nature.